AngelWing is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Chapter 1, Nostalgic Memories. Delilah was lying on her bed, finishing up her AP English homework. Delilah didn't like the class, but she needed the credit to lower the alarming budget on college time. The class was currently reading Wuthering Heights, and the summary was due tomorrow during her 6th period. They had to read Chapter 18, yet Delilah found herself just turning the page to Chapter 14. Her eyes drearily skimming the lines of the literature, and didn't take a single word of it.
"This Victorian stuff is hard to follow,"
she muttered sleepily, looking past the pages at her bedside table, from where her clock sat. The red lines became fuzzy for a moment as she stared at the clock face. 11:05. Typical. She had to procrastinate on her homework to the last minute. She sat up, her long blonde hair swaying, set her bookmark in the place where she had stopped reading, and placed it near her backpack at the foot of the bed. She drowsily scanned her room. It had gotten cluttered over the last few days. Various textbooks and assignments were scattered in loose piles on her small desk, and the surrounding floor in the corner. A wardrobe sat on the other side of the room, with a floor-to-ceiling mirror adjacent to it. She remembered the conversation she had with her parents about getting a sizable mirror so she could see herself in various outfits. It took 3 full weeks to finally convince them to get it for a previous birthday. Next to her bed was a small cabinet, which held some of her prized possessions, pictures of friends and family, a jewelry box full of necklaces, a couple stuffed animals she'd won years ago, and a box containing her track shoes. Delilah stood and walked wearily to the wardrobe and pulled out the next day's clothes. She pulled out her favorite jeans, a blue tank top, a white shirt, and light blue socks, barely recognizing the colors in the dark. Putting them at the foot of her bed, the reflection of herself in the mirror drew her attention. Walking over to it, she stared at herself. She saw a girl of about 17, with long blonde hair spilling loosely over her shoulders to her collarbone. She had it done in a straight ponytail today. The hair was slightly straggly after the day's events. Her face was clear and heart-shaped. Her teeth were white and straight, and she smiled to see all the small dimples appear on the sides of her warm grin. Delilah was of slender build, not skinny, but slimmer than most girls. The last detail she examined was her eyes.
"Looks like pools of sapphires,"
Alistair said. That was most defining feature. Alistair had always loved her eyes.
"Alistair."
Delilah turned around and moved over to the cabinet and picked up a photo. It was one that was taken during cross-country camp. The team was arranged on the steps of a tram station, lined up in rows, either standing or sitting. Delilah saw herself sitting on the bottom stair, sweat glistening on her forehead after running up the mountain. Next to her was her friend Chelsea, and right behind Chelsea was... Oh, Delilah looked at Alistair. Before, Alistair had been tall, lanky, and skinny. He had just been slightly taller than Delilah, maybe 2/3 inches taller. His hair was dark brown, cut short, and combed slantways across his head. His face was slightly scarred with acne, but otherwise smooth and thin. His skin was paler than most kids, but also soft and firm to the touch. This picture had him while his braces were on. He was smiling widely, which didn't look quite right on him. I can't remember where I was. Delilah remembered his soft, wan smile he'd always given her when they had seen each other. Thin yet strong muscles protruded on his slender arms, which were poking out of his jacket, and his hand was resting on Chelsea's shoulder. Delilah stared at the picture, noticing that Alistair's eyes were the same shade of blue as her own. How long had he been gone? 1, maybe 2 years now. Delilah stared at the photograph, but no longer saw it. It was as if someone had pushed play on a video on her head. She was remembering the night that Alistair had left.
She was sitting on her bed reading a book when she heard the doorbell ring. A moment later, her father knocked on the door.
"Someone here to see you, Delilah."
She put the book down and followed her father downstairs. Who would be visiting her on a Saturday night? Coming down the stairs, she could see the doorway clearly. Standing in the doorway, looking tired and anxious, was Alistair. The obvious, "Oh, we're going. Okay, where are we?" He looked serious, which wasn't like him. Delilah slowed her stride when she saw his face. Cool and calculating. 2 questions came into Delilah's head. Why was Alistair here? And why isn't he gone yet? And what was he wearing? Alistair was wearing skin-tight robes, like those the ancient Chinese ninjas. Chinese ninjas, really? Really? They were dark green. They almost appeared black in color. Why couldn't they just say they were black? Resting on his shoulders was a cloak the same dark green as the robes, but the inside was a deep gold. Snug gloves were on his hands, the same color green, embellished with the same gold fabric. I wonder what his favorite colors could possibly be.